My name is Allison McElroy, and I'm going to be doing a speech on whether or not boys and girls should be in separate classes. Before the 20th century, separate single-sex classrooms were the norm, but coming into the 21st century, they were seen as anachronistic and behind the times. So this is why I'm taking the negative position. I have three main points that I'm going to discuss. Single-sex classrooms are discriminatory, they are ineffective, and they do not prepare students for real-life situations. My first point is discrimination. Single-sex classrooms do not treat students equivocally. According to the International Journal of Applied Linguistics and English Literature, the Title IX initiative of 1972 outlawed discrimination basis of sex in educational programs receiving federal funds, which public schools with segregated classes do receive public funds. Much like the concept of left brain and right brain, the concept of hardwired differences between boys and girls is mostly false. Yet that is what Leonard Sachs, a main proponent of the single-sex classroom, provides as evidence for the single-sex education. He states that differences in adults' neural structure begin in children, and that girls are intimidated by loud teachers while boys love loud teachers, and so he encourages different educational practices. But really, it is now believed in science that the differences can be explained by socialization rather than an innate difference. The next claim is breaking gender lines. Single-sex schools for boys reinforce stereotypes, even if for girls they may encourage girls to go for typically male subjects like math and science. If anything, boys are more encouraged to still not allow boys to assume female roles, even though that is one argument. There is an ACLU 2010 case that CNN had in one Louisiana school where boys read Where the Wet Red Fern Grows while girls read The Witch of Blackbird Pond, because boys like hunting and dogs, but girls prefer love stories. Some other things in the case were girls tend to look at teacher as an ally. Girl-friendly is safe, comfortable, welcoming. They have dark rooms, and they learn by talking. Now, this is seen as discrimination because there was one child who could not see in that dark environment, and their learning was impeded by that environment. And one woman's daughter was repeatedly told to hold still, even while in the male environment there were plenty of opportunities to move around, and her daughter had ADHD and was encouraged to move, and she did not have those opportunities in the single-sex classroom. My second point is that single-sex classrooms are ineffective. It is shown that there is little academic advantage. Some argue that single-sex schools produce better educational outcomes, but the U.S. Department of Education does not agree. On a large-scale study over several countries, including Britain, Canada, and Australia, the analysis is that generally single-sex programs, especially those in private schools, start out with students who are better prepared and that have higher test scores, and those who do not meet standards are often pushed out of those programs. So any results that are seen as more effective are artificial and a product of the existing students and not the educational program itself. Additionally, the other inherent advantages come from the strict nature of some schools rather than the single-sex nature of the education itself. For example, you can see that the girl in this picture is wearing a uniform. This is generally considered to be a more structured kind of learning, and which some would argue to be more effective, while the co-ed school is a less structured environment. Finally, it leaves students ill-prepared because the real world is not single-sex. Work environments are co-ed. It encourages children to form biases. Generally, in single-sex classrooms, they do not have opportunities to mingle with other members of opposite sex. And when in a study, when separating children by meaningless characteristics such as eye color, and randomly assigning children's group, throughout the study, the children continue to separate themselves. So when we separate them by gender, they tend not to associate. And it also provides them fewer chances to learn to work with people of other genders in a structured environment, like school. And this is one of the strongest arguments against single-sex education, as because when teachers choose to make their genders apparent, they spend less time interacting with other sexes. And so single-sex classrooms are discriminatory, ineffective, and do not prepare students for the real world. I would encourage funding public education with co-ed classrooms, because single-sex classrooms themselves do not have an inherent benefit.